this is exponents, polynomials, and some graphing review. We might not get to the graphing today. We'll try our best. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and do the even examples, and then if you need extra, just if you don't want to talk out loud, you can show me with your fingers which one you want to see, like number 5, or you can just say, can you show that one too? So this is page 6, I believe. Yeah. It should be next page in your packet if you have your binder. Everybody got this page all right? We good? Okay. So when you have, instructing mode. So when you have this, you're just doing regular multiplication of the numbers. So you got 2 times 3, which you guys probably know that already is 6. Does anybody know what you have to do with the variables when you multiply?
X.
Okay, drop the X.
And then multiply the 2 lines together.
Yeah, and what happens when you multiply with exponents? Do you know what?
And then 8.
You are super close. So instead of thinking multiplying the exponents, yes, you add them. So when you multiply exponents, you actually add them. So if you need to write yourself a little note about that, when we multiply with exponents, we add them. Some people said they like formulas, so let me try to do a little thing over here. So if we have x to the m power, they have to be the same variable, and x to the n power, the rule is that you add the exponents. So if you like a little note or a little rule in the corner, that can be your little rule. But obviously m and n represent numbers. So 2 and 2 add to 4, and the x just slides down in any order you want, but definitely put the number in front, because if the number's not in front, it's it looks funny. Any questions on that one? Okay, so with number 4, it's got a parenthesis. So for this one, you want to think of distributing the power. So at first we have 2 to the 3rd power. So 2 to the 3rd power, does anyone know how to calculate that or what that means?
That would be 2 times 2 times 2.
Mm-hmm. Good job. 2 times 2 times 2.
6.
Really close. A little bit higher. Perfect. Good. You can also do 2 to the 3rd in your calculator if you have these calculators and you want to use them. You can hit the number 2, and then let me see if it'll show. It's got a little glare, but that's okay. You can hit the 2 and then hit this button and then 3. And then if you hit enter, it'll do it for you. It's kind of cool. Yeah, it's fine. So 2 to the 3rd. I had to think about that if someone else was there, but I remember now. All right. Now for the exponent and the variable, that can be a little tricky for people sometimes. So I like to put a little invisible 1 with the a, because there's no exponent there right now. So if I have a1 and then I have this 3 that's coming through to distribute, anyone have a guess on what you should do with the little numbers or the exponents? Any guesses? This would have probably been Mr. George's class. Mrs. George. Do I keep saying that? Mr. George's. That's a tongue twister for me. Let me write the formula for you guys. So if you have a variable and it's raised to a power and then it's raised to another one, the formula is that the answer would be x to the m times n. I feel like I can separate this out a little bit. Yeah, just if you need a clear indication of the two problems. So when you have an exponent and another exponent, you just multiply them. That's all you have to do. So we have 1 times 3. And that gives us a 3. And then we have our 8. Sometimes equations will stick in our mind because we've done them so much, like pre-algebra, algebra, math B, algebra 1A, all that stuff. But problems like this don't always stick. So ask questions if you have them. But if there's parentheses, you want to think multiplication. But like Max said earlier, if you have a big number and an exponent, you want to do like you normally do. You probably learned this in Miss Chelsea's class. You didn't have Miss Chelsea pre-algebra. If you have a number to the exponent, you write it out however many times you see it and you multiply it that many times. So what questions do we have on the first two? I know Ashley, you came in after number 2. Do you have questions on how we did that one? Oh, gotcha. So you can do 2 to the 3rd in your calculator, or you can write the number out 3 times. That's such a good question. I'm so glad you asked that. That's perfect. Asking questions is really good. It's definitely how we learn, for sure. Trust me, when I'm in school, because I'm in school right now too, I ask so many questions, and that's just how I learn. If I don't ask it, I forget it. So it's a learning process, but yeah, definitely these properties would be good ones to write out. So if you're multiplying with exponents and you have the same base, you add the exponents. And if you have a parenthesis, you multiply the exponents. Big numbers, it's not 6, you're not multiplying it, you're just raising the number to that power. So you are multiplying it, you're multiplying it by itself. So like if I had 2 to the 4th power, does anyone know what that would be? So if I had 2 to the 4th power, I think someone said it, 16, good. So that would be like 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. Awesome sauce. Okay, so when you have division, it's a little bit different. It's actually very similar to number 2. So when we multiply exponents, we think of addition. And when we divide, it's actually the complete opposite. So we think really close. This one was multiply, right, with the parentheses. So division, if multiplication is addition, what do you? Yep, exactly. So let me write your little rule here. All right, so technically you have to look at whichever exponent is bigger, but you do subtract. So it's got a little bit of a trick to it. So this is the main formula, but sometimes if like n is bigger, you might think of subtracting the other way. So I'll show you how that works, but this is like your main formula typically. Sometimes it's easier to see it in the actual example. So I'll show you how it works. So if you look at number 6, anything with a number, I'm going to try to zoom in and focus it just so you guys can see a little bit. Anything with a number is just basic division. So what's 3 divided by 3? 1. Yeah. So we know 3 divided by 3 is 1. So I'm just going to put 1 down. I like to put my bar, and then if it's a whole number when I divide, like 3 divided by 3 is 1, I just put the 1 on the top. So if it was like 6 divided by 3, I'd put a 2 at the top. But if it was 3 over 6, I would have to put the 2 on the bottom because 3 divided by 6 is 0.5, which is 1/2. So you have to be careful. That's why I like the calculators. Because if you divide the top number by the bottom and you get a decimal, you need to write it as a fraction instead of a whole number, right? So if I give you 3 cookies out of 6, I give you half of the cookies. So we'll do a fraction one like that as well. the A4 and the A2. So 4 take away 2 is going to be our new exponent. And anyone know what that might be?
2.
Okay, good. Now the B's are going to be a little tricky. Anybody have any guesses?
Would you just leave it at B?
Well, if I do 0 minus 2,
It's negative.
yeah, sure, of course. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, no, you're fine. We're not using them today. You're good. Yeah, no problem. So if you have a bigger number on the bottom, you can still go like 2 minus 0, which is 2. But you have to put the answer where the bigger number is. So like, yeah. So, oh, this is a new box. That's nice. It's a nice new box of highlighters, different colors too. There's highlighters over there if you guys, do well with highlighting. But you want to think of where's the exponent higher. So since the exponent is higher in the bottom, that's where your B answer is going to live. If you might have had a math teacher who actually wrote out the B's and like crossed them out. That helps some students. So you could always actually write out 2 B's on the bottom, but you can't really write 0 B's on the top. So you would have 2 on the bottom anyway. But yeah, anytime you have a higher number, that's where your answer will reside. So if you look at those A's, why are the A's on the top? Exactly. So since there's extra A's on the top, that's why it lives on the top. Yeah, very good, very good. Yeah. And the 1 is optional. Some people call it an invisible one. So they might not write it if they have other stuff. But if for some reason, like all the A's canceled and all the B's canceled, like if they were the same exact number, you could just write a big 1 as a placeholder. So that's just a little insight into that. All right, let's do a few more of the exponents here. So this one here, this is back to that multiplication with exponents. So you're going to have to look back to your rule up here, the xm, xn, and you add the exponents. So does anybody want to take a guess for number 8 on what it might be? I gotcha. I know. I might have put your binder back though. Or no, it's on the chair, I think. I'm pretty sure it's on the chair. Don't worry, Miss Lindsay already talked to me. You're good. Anybody got a guess on what they can do with the y exponent since it's the multiplication rule? So when you got this property written down, I think this is page 6, yeah. You want to add the exponents. So don't let that 2 throw you off, okay? That you could just bring the 2 down. There's no other numbers. But if you got y2 and y1, what do you think the new exponent's going to be? Yeah, y3, because you add them. Good. So if you use those 3 rules, if you multiply, you add, if you're dividing, you subtract, and if it's got parentheses, you multiply, those are the 3 rules you need to know. All right, so 2y3. Now, the x0, if I go in my calculator and I raise a number to 0, yeah, it could come out error. I think mine came out, I'm gonna raise 5 to the 0. Okay, so if I raise 5 to the 0, I can't tell if the light made it worse or better. Yeah, it comes out 1. So if I just get 1 for this, if that's just 1, well, 1 times 2 is 2. So I don't have to do anything with that x0. And this would just be my answer. So exponents can be a little bit tricky. There's one more exponent rule, and then we can practice a few of them together, okay? So if anybody wants to try any, I'll stop the recording and you guys can feel free to ask questions. I'll come around. The one other rule is if you have a negative exponent, like here, negative exponents, I gotta think of how to write that. You got it? Yep. So the rule is usually written out like this. So if you have x to the -1, or same thing, if you have x to any negative exponent, if it's on the top of the fraction or it's just like this, then it goes to the bottom. So I know some of you guys said you're formula people, so I'm writing these down, but sometimes it's easier once you see an example to actually understand it. So if you look through a problem and it has a negative exponent, what I usually tell people to do is to bust out a little highlighter and just mark it. And anything that's negative, you're going to send to the bottom of your problem. So you can rewrite your problem with everything the same, except put the m-2 onto the bottom. So that means inverse in math anytime it has a negative. Oh, this 4? Excellent question. So coefficients or regular numbers just stay where they're at unless they were to have a negative exponent themselves. That's a really good question. Very good. That's why I love when people ask questions, because a lot of times it's things I don't even think about. I'm like, oh yeah, I should have explained that part. So thank you for asking that. I'm just going to copy everything down that's already up there. And then that m-2, since it is a -2, I want to bring that down to the basement, and I can put it wherever I want. I'm just going to put it at the end, and I'm going to make it positive. Yeah, you can put a dot there if you want. Since there's a variable right next to it, you don't have to put an extra dot, okay? So then you can just use all your properties kind of like step by step. I'm going to put a bubble around this. So yeah, so we can start with exponents today. When we get to polynomials, in my opinion, polynomials are easier than exponents. Kind of like equations are easier than, well, I think proportions are easier than equations. Depends on the person. But when you have a lot going on, usually you just take it one level at a time. Like if you're restoring a house, like an old house, you might just look at one floor of the house at a time, right? So just, the top is pretty simple. Let's leave the top as it is. And let's just look at the bottom. So all of this stuff is on the bottom. We probably all know what 4 times 2 is. So that part should be standard, all that jazz. Hello. This is my crew. I think I only had one not. Yeah. Hopefully she didn't like pass out at the McDonald's. Okay, good. Sometimes we do notes the second period. Sometimes we're reviewing, other times we're, but I really do appreciate, those of you came back, and I know you were going through stuff, so we figured that out, but I appreciate it. And it helps because then when you get the notes, it's not the same just copying them down and all that. It helps to kind of go through it as a class. So anyone want to take a stab at the bottom? It looks like a lot. I'm going to put a little 1 here to give you a little hint. Oh, gotcha. Because of this little golden rule over here. That's an excellent question. So this is just a general rule, but this problem doesn't have any numbers in front of it. But if it had like a 2, like hypothetically right there, are you talking about a number on top of the fraction bar? You are 100% right, Jade. I know where you're getting at. Are you saying that the 4s can cancel and become a 1? That's 100% right. That's good. That's good. I hadn't gotten there, but she's right. She's right. We should do that instead. So yeah, we could do 4 times 2, which is 8, but she's 100% right. Could we just cancel those out right away? We can. You guys are so smart. So before we do the bottom, maybe we should check for what cancels. See, I love that you guys have learned some of this before because you're teaching me new ways that I can do it. I always simplify the bottom and the top first, and then I go forward. But I love that idea, Jade. So does everyone see what she did there? Beautiful. Okay, and then you said you could cancel out the end force. Yeah, so why are we able to cancel them out? Do you guys know? Yeah, and when they're stacked, we're usually subtracting, right? So 4 minus 4 is just a good old 0.
Would it be like 0 up there?
You don't have to put it
Or would it be-
at all.
it wouldn't be one of these.
So N4, if you had a problem that was just N4 over N4, and that was the whole problem, your answer would be just a 1 as a placeholder. So when that happens, you could put N0, but there's really no point in putting N0 because if you go in your calculator and you do any number to the 0 power, it's just 1. It gives you a placeholder. Is there any numbers up here though at all? If we cancel the 4s out, is there anything left up here and this? Exactly. So if all that stuff canceled on the top, you should probably put 1 as a placeholder, as Jade had mentioned. And now I wish I had my white out. That's okay, I can cross it out. She's 100% right. If everything cancels out from the top, you need to put something as a placeholder. So that was really good. That was really good. I didn't think to do that in the beginning. That was smart, very smart. I got a lot going on the bottom though. Anybody know what to do with all those M's? Yeah, go for it, Ashlyn.
You would multiply them all.
You're so close. You're so
You
close.
multiply the number in front of them, so it would be end up being 2,
Okay.
and then you plus all the small numbers.
Yeah. Oh, perfect. Okay. So you remembered your property of adding. Good. So 4 plus 1 plus 2, 7. I'm glad you guys took that shortcut. I didn't think about that. If you're a person that struggles with the shortcut though, you could always just work out the bottom first. But I kind of like that. Maybe see what cancels in the top and the bottom first. All right. So I want to take a real quick gander. Seems like you guys are kind of getting the hang of it. Does anybody want to try one of the odd ones? I could stop the video or I could keep it. It doesn't matter either way. If you want to be in one, you can. Anybody want to try it? And it's okay to get it wrong too. That's kind of how we learn. We were talking in the staff lounge over lunch. Like I'm a kinesthetic learner, so I have to do stuff to learn it. If I just write it down, I'm gonna be like, okay, I gotta practice that. So why don't we take about I don't know, 15 minutes or so to try out the odds on the examples. And we can work on this quite a bit tomorrow too. But I want you to remember your properties that we have written down. So if you didn't get a chance to get the notes, we can pass this around too, but these are the big ones. When you're multiplying exponents and they're the same base, you want to add them. Okay, that's the key. They have to be the same letter. So like X, Y, Z, whatever. And then if you have a parenthesis and you have 2 exponents like this, that's where you multiply them. So if you have these 2 properties, that'll help out. If they're stacked, that one's kind of easy to remember because stack, subtract, it rhymes. Stack and subtract. You want to make sure you put the answer wherever it's a higher exponent. So just keeping in mind, like if you had something real quick to make sure, if you had something like this, all right, can you tell which one of those is the higher number and where the X should live? Bottom or top? So the top, oh, that's a 3, by the way. if it looks like an 8. Which number is bigger? The top one? About, okay. So when you do 5 minus 3, you need to make sure that the x2 lives on the bottom. And if there's nothing left on the top, like Jade told us earlier, we got to put a 1, right? Yeah, exactly. So sometimes bringing it back to some of these more basic examples is helpful. So maybe doing a couple of these might help you guys out just to, I'm not saying you guys are basic, I'm saying it helps because we need to build upon the skills. But it's been a minute. Some people are like, I'm not going to remember that. It takes longer, but if you need to write it out like this, I don't know if any of your teachers did this before, but if you need to do this and cross them out and then see that the 2 is on the bottom, that's fine as well. That's an option. So there's that. I think we understand the negative thing, put the negatives on the bottom. If you're doing one like number 7, I just want to give you a hint on this one, and then I'll give you some time to try them out and I'll walk around. This one, if it has a negative exponent in there and there's no bottom, like numerator and denominator, just draw yourself a little line and put the negative exponent in the bottom and make it positive. So I'm just giving you a little hint on number 7 that's how I would start that one. And we did a lot of work on equations today. So let's just start with exponents. Let's work on this a little bit. And I'll break this down into 3 videos that I'll post separate. So we'll work on exponents a bit today, make sure we're strong on those. And then we'll go over some like polynomials. Those are a lot easier for most people. Exponents, once you get used to them, they're not that bad though, okay? So we'll just try those out. And yeah,